I'm your host, Tiffany Souter, and this is Scared Confident. So today we're doing another coffee over microphones, and these are always prompted when somebody reaches out to me, kind of saying like, hey, I've got some questions for you, Tiffany. And one of my reasons for doing this podcast is that I, as a young woman, young professional, trying to imagine what my life was going to look like, long to reach out to people who are at a different stage of my life and to share these conversations with others because our questions are not unique ever. And so Colleen is joining me today. She did just that. She reached out and said, hey, I have some questions. Let's chat. And so we're going to do that. So Colleen,
I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
This
Thanks
will
for
be a
doing
great
this.
time. Yeah, I'm so excited. Seriously, when I slid into your LinkedIn DMs, I was like, there's no way she responds. There's no shot. And so I was so excited that you actually responded and said yes.
Well, I think the first time you DM'd me, it was after I had my fourth daughter, and you are from a family of girls,
All
right?
girls. I'm the oldest of 3.
So I feel like that
Yes.
was really interesting to me. I did not grow up in a single gender family as far as like all the siblings being the same. I have brothers. And so knowing that my kids are going to have a really different experience, I'm also interested to learn from you.
You're lucky. I think all girls households, I'm biased, but they're the best. Like I am so lucky that I got to grow up with them.
So what's one very significant memory from your childhood with your sisters?
It was when we were moving houses, actually. So we moved when I was maybe like 10. And so my youngest sister was 5. And then my middle sister was 7. And so we had moved houses and we did not have any furniture in our new house. It hadn't been delivered yet. So we were sitting on basically just couch cushions that we fashioned into our own couch. And we were all 3. I was reading a chapter book out loud to them because we are very dorky, all 3 of us, and we read all the time, like did not grow up watching a lot of TV. And so there's this picture, and I can picture it so clearly. It's on my mom's desk, and it's the 3 of us sitting there with me reading to them. And it's just very much a representation of what it was like to grow up with them. They're always looking up to you. They're always watching. You're always together. Can't get rid of them.
That's really cool. Okay, so talk to me about where you're at in your life, and then we can kind of go from there.
Perfect. So I just graduated back in May. Literally just
Okay, so
started.
your necklace is 1999. Were you born in 1999?
Yep.
You guys, I am like dying right now.
My bosses get so mad when I wear this necklace. They're like, you're making us feel old with that necklace.
I know. I'm like, there's no possible way you're a grown up, but it's true. That was 22 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my word. Okay, so Miss 1999, you tell about where you're at right now in your life.
So I just graduated back in May. I also started my first ever full-time job. I work in sales, which I've never done sales before. So first sales job. And I work for a company that sells sales consulting and sales training. It's a great team, and I'm really happy with where I'm at, but I'm still in this weird transition part of my life that like nothing feels really solid yet.
And I think in that stage of life, you're still learning what your brain even does well.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I remember that, like just not knowing what I was going to be good at because I was good at school, but that is not like the same as being good at a thing. I also think the thing that is hard at that stage in life is there's kind of no validation. Like there's no test scores, there's no grades, and you're really actually not good at anything yet. And you know that, but it's really draining.
100%. It definitely feels like I've had to tell my boss, I'm like, I just need to hear that I did a good job. And she's so good about it now. But like, I'm a person that really needs reinforcement. And I just need to hear that I'm doing a good job. It's not necessarily for me like a monetary compensation thing that I need to know that I'm doing a good job. It's definitely for me, like I need to hear that from people, which like in school, you hear that when a teacher gives you your paper back. But in the work world, I've come to find at least you have to ask for it and people will give it to you. Like my boss, all she had to know was that I needed that. And so I guess that's something that I am glad I did. So asking, I think, is something that I'm really working on.
What made you ask for it? Like, how did you even know that you needed that? I think that's actually rare.
It's honestly probably I got my first person to sign up for these events that we host that are at the core of our sales cycle. And I was so excited when that email hit my inbox. And I felt the need to share that with my boss, knowing that she was going to say, oh my gosh, Colleen, great job. And as more people started to register for this event and I kept telling her, I realized I'm doing this because I need to hear that. So in a one-on-one, I just said, I think this is the type of person I am. That is how I will feel valued, is hearing that I'm valued. And so she's been really conscious about it ever since. So it was definitely kind of like a weird thing to ask. It was kind of like, tell me I'm doing a good job, which feels kind of awkward to do. But for me to like keep going, especially in sales, you get a lot of no's. So I need to hear that I'm doing a good job when I do get those yeses.
Yeah, it's super courageous. So when you were a little girl, I don't know if it was 10, but like, what did you dream of being? And I'm just kind of curious, like you are like, I went to college and now I'm in the business world. Like, is that what you pictured?
No, I wanted to be on TV. I wanted to be a news reporter. I actually almost went to journalism school at Mizzou, and I thought I wanted to be on the morning news. And I think I kind of realized senior year when I was like applying to college and stuff, I didn't actually care to be the one talking. I liked to be the one writing what people were saying. So that kind of shifted my focus. It kind of became, I like to write, but I don't really know what to do with that. But yeah, I used to really want to be on TV, which is probably a little conceited.
I think that we are like sort of drawn to things that are interesting to us, or that we sort of as maybe part of what's in our own heart. I certainly have people like that in my life where it's like, I don't know how to explain it. I just feel like I'm drawn to what you are becoming or a certain part of your character. So I'm just curious, like, what about my sort of adjectives and nouns connects with you? And then let's sort of talk about that.
I think honestly, you kind of first resonated me with this post that you posted right when your fourth daughter was born. And I paid attention because I saw the picture was like all girls. And that I was like, oh, that looks like my family. So I took the time to read the post. And then hearing you talk about being a mom, a wife, a business person, a friend, all in one post, I was like, those are all the things that I want and hope to be. When I look at you, I see a lot of things that I feel like I'm trying to lay the foundation for right now, that I'm trying to get myself to a point where I'm a mom, I work, I'm a good friend, I'm a good wife. And you seem to be doing a good job at all of it, from what I can tell.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that. It takes like everything work, you know, and we're like kind of bad at things before we're good at them, but it is definitely a process of continuing to learn. So I'd love to know, like, what did your mom stay home? Did she work? Like, what did that look like?
I would honestly say you and my mom like have similar paths because she has a really, really full life too. So my mom is a full-time attorney. She stayed home for about 2 or 3 years when my third sister was born. And she was really bad at being a stay-at-home mom. My dad says that she used to call him like multiple times a day because she was bored. So she was not good at it. So she went back to work. So she worked pretty much my whole childhood. So she worked at private companies. So she had a little more flexibility than like a law firm. But she was the type of mom, she picked me up from school pretty much every day. I honestly don't know how she did it, but she negotiated a lot of flexibility into her job, which you don't really think of when you hear of a lawyer. Like my dad did not have that. So she just really prioritized being a mom in addition to having her big career. And now that we're all almost graduated, my little sister's a senior in high school, she's like trying to revamp up her career again. She didn't put it on hold. She was still doing it. But she says that if she hadn't spent so much time and energy on it, she thinks she would be in a different place. She's not a place she wants to be in. But she's kind of starting to like ramp up again, which is going to be a really cool kind of phase of her life to get to watch on my part. Is she kind of took a little bit of a back seat and now she's really getting in the driver's seat, which I think is really, really cool and exciting for her.
So what did you, one of the things I'm so curious about in 20 years is to be able to ask my kids, like, what was it like to grow up in our household? Because my mom stayed home with us.
Okay.
And so I lived something totally different than what my kids are. And so I'm curious, like, what are the things that you remember about your mom? Did you guys have like nannies or sitters or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, we had a nanny for a really long time.
Yeah. And so
and she was great. She's part of the family.
Same. Like that's what it is.
Do you guys have a nanny?
Too. Yeah. And she's like part of the jam in like a real way.
Did you know you wanted to work always, or did you ever think about staying home?
No, I totally thought I would stay home.
Really?
Oh, yeah. because
I
it's
would
what
never
my
guess
mom
that.
did. I know, it's like very, I don't know. Maybe other people would have said they didn't think I would stay home, but I think because my mom did, that's what I thought I would do. I really didn't have a example of a professional woman in my life for a long, long time. And that's not to say it's sad, but I grew up in a really small town, and
Okay.
the women who worked had jobs, not careers.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a thing. And usually if both parents were working, it was that they were socioeconomically like kind of struggling.
They needed
Yes,
to
they
work.
needed
Yeah.
it. And it was not because they were excited or driving things forward. Like, you know what I mean? And so that was what I grew up around, like just environmentally in
Right.
rural Indiana, that's what it looks like. And so I didn't really have a vision that this could be a thing. And so I've had to learn a lot, which is why I think I feel so passionate about like sharing it, because it was really the school of hard knocks to like get here.
At what point did you decide, like when you started having kids, that that wasn't going to be for you?
Well, when I had my first one, it would be interesting to even hear your mom's perspective, because I have a suspicion had I ever gone home, I probably would have boomeranged back kind of like your mom, like, what am I supposed to do? I don't understand. So with my first one, I was like, well, there's just one. Like, I can't, like, what would I can't imagine what I would do for like this many
Especially they're a
hours. So I was
baby.
like, wait, I'll wait till we have two, and then I'll stay home after I have two. And then we had a second one. And honestly, like, I love my kids, and I think people around me would say I'm really intentional about quality time with them. But if I'm honest, when I get quantity of time with them, and I don't mean this in a way that I don't love my kids, I lose energy. I am just like not on point. I'm not. And that is, I sort of like read my own makeup of like what I needed to feel like I had a ton to give them.
Yeah.
And I really feel like being my job, I'm going to say that instead of like doing it. Like I literally feel like this is just part of me.
Yeah.
And the thing I was like put on this earth to do. I have so much more creative energy to give them. I have so much more kindness to give them. I have so much more, I think even I'm just smarter as a parent because I've been leading people for 20 years. I don't actually feel like I screwed up my first two and got it right with my second two, which I think parents feel that way because you're learning how to lead and how to steward and you don't know. And I really feel like I have had a chance to practice a lot about how do you get a human being from who they are to what they can become. And we do that in parenting, but we also do that with people that work for us. And so I think I'm better at that. I think I'm a better teacher. I think I'm a better listener. I think I better understand their talents and makeup because I had a chance to lead people from a really young age. So that was really where I was like, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do is stay home. And I think I had an inference of expectation from my mom stayed home, my grandma stayed home, my aunts all stayed home. Like, I think I inferred the expectation that I stayed home, that was the right thing to do. But nobody ever said that to me. And everybody was very supportive when I don't know if they were supportive. Nobody cared. Nobody cared, you know what I mean? That I was working. And so I think for me, it was just about reading my own energy in the same way that your mom, I think, was like, I just don't know if this is for me. I also see some of my stay-at-home mom friends, and maybe this is just like selfish, they work so hard and they're like super involved in school and all this stuff, like for free. I'm like, holy crap, if I'm going to have to like do so much stuff, I'm going to figure out how to make money at it. So maybe just selfishly, I feel like that creates a more abundant environment for me. I can sort of have resources. And so I like the scoreboard of the financial part of business because it helps me know if I'm getting better or not.
Did scoreboards ever like stress you out? Because scoreboards stress me out.
So here's what I had to understand. Scoreboards used to stress me out because I was afraid I was going to lose if there was a score. And so I would say, sheepish about wanting one or establishing goals because I didn't want people to know or me to know if I'd won or lost. And keeping it really vague kept me a winner. You know what I'm saying? Like in my own head. And when you create really clear goals and have a really crisp articulation of what good and bad looks like, you are vulnerable. And that was hard for me to understand Somebody said, results are personal, feedback is not. Results are personal, feedback is not. And I used to live in a world where feedback was personal and results were not. Like I was the victim of what happened instead of accepting the fact that literally I am in control of everything that happens around me. And feedback, either from a scoreboard, feedback from a person, feedback from a colleague, feedback from a client, feedback is only refining me so that I can take more explicit accountability of the result I'm trying to drive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I now, my 41-year-old self, I'll say loves a scoreboard. I don't know, my colleagues might be like, but do you really? But I really, because it keeps me on track. Because I am a million ideas every single day. And if I don't know what I'm running at, I can get really distracted and feel like I'm doing a lot of good, but it's not actually furthering anything. It's just sort of being nice to people. Does that make sense? Like things need to work. Things need to be productive. Things need to be an economic engine. Things need to be that to be sustained. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the result in and of itself. What I mean by that is element 3's purpose is not to make money. Element 3's purpose is to foster growth in people and business so they can change the world. And we have to make money
To do that.
And I had to learn the relationship between those things. Is there has to be incredible diligence to the scoreboard, but it doesn't in and of itself have to be the outcome.
No, that makes sense. I think for me, what I struggle with like scoreboards and like being in sales, like my KPIs, is that I think I tie a lot of like self-worth into like hitting those numbers. If I don't hit my number of meetings I'm supposed to have, if I don't hit the revenue I'm supposed to close in a month, it makes me feel like a bad person or like a failure. I just think I tie a lot of myself into those.
So have Brian and Stephanie talked to you about IR theory?
No.
Did you guys talk about this? Okay, so let's talk about this because this is a really big thing. I learned it in sales training, which is, I think it's very acute in that world. So IR theory is I is your identity and R is your role. So you, Colleen, are a person. You have an identity. And that person is that you have a set of values that you abide by, right? I don't know, let's say it's, I show up on time. I'm a good friend. I am caring. People would call me empathetic, or I don't like know you that well, but like there are things that are you, and that's your identity. And then you have roles that you play. Your role as a sister, your role as a daughter, your role as an employee, your role as a fellow. Like you have roles that you play, and you can be terrible in your role and your identity remain totally intact. So an example that I've used on this before is my husband. I love him. He's great. He's funny. He's smart. He's awesome. That's his identity. I love those things. And the role he plays and his ability to be able to be the handyman in our house is tragic.
I can relate. So is my dad.
He's terrible. He's terrible at it. He's terrible at it. And I can hate his performance in that role and still love his identity as a person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of. And so when you think about, when you have bad IR theory, I'm going to say bad, when it's weak IR theory, meaning I allow my performance in my role to touch the way that I think of myself and my identity. I had a terrible IR theory at the beginning as well, which is why I know so much about it, is if I had a good day and I sold something, I felt huge and powerful and smart and confident. And only when I performed well in that role did I allow my identity to be that. When I started to understand, like, no, that's who I am. I'm confident. I'm outgoing. I'll say funny, I don't know, things you shouldn't say about yourself. But like, these are things I am. And even if I lay an egg in my role at something, or I'm starting something new or whatever, that doesn't change who I am. And so practicing that mentally, like literally, there's not like anything you can do but just practice the muscle in your head. If I'm not going to allow this to start the negative self-talk cycle of making me less than what I am on my best day, because that's actually who I am.
Yeah, no, it's also like very comforting, I will say, to hear that you had weak IR theory
Terrible.
at one point, because sometimes I feel like I'm a little hard on myself, which I like expect perfection at things. And I'm like, I'm 22. I've actually never had a job before. So yeah, that's a good reminder that I think everyone always needs. I need it a lot to
Well,
be
and
more patient with yourself.
I think that our education system kind of builds it in, unfortunately, for us to have weak IR theory as like Americans, because if you get good grades, guess what you get to do? You get to walk across the stage and get honor society. If you get good grades, you get to hear your name on the announcement. If you're the team captain, you get to stand in the front. Like, we only put people in the front once in their role, they've accomplished something. Those are some of the things I feel like I have the ability to parent in my kids that, had I not grown through all this stuff professionally, is like, how do I not just reward their performance, their grades, their kindness, etc., but help parent the motives of their hearts, because that's their identity part. So maybe you failed, but if you showed up with compassion, but you still weren't able to like be successful in it, that's a win. Like, that's your identity. And so that, I don't know, I'm saying a lot of words, but that is really critical, that we don't let our performance on task, particularly when we're learning and trying things, to get us to shut down in our identity, because we have to be able to stay strong in that.
You seem like, how you talk and what I see on LinkedIn, like you seem very passionate about Element 3 and about what you do every single day. How did you go about figuring out that was where your passion lies? Because right now I feel like I'm in a place where I've had a lot of good jobs. I've had a lot of good internships that I liked. I like my job. I haven't found something that like lights me up yet. And sometimes it feels like I'm like not gonna find that, and it's just like I'm just gonna go through life. I'm gonna have a bunch of jobs that are fine, that are good, that pay well, that support but nothing is really gonna ever like fill me or fill my cup in that way.
I would say I'm still learning what it is that I totally believe about this idea of passion, but I think it's kind of oversold as it relates to setting people's expectations about like what it feels like to live in your crosshairs of your ex, like where you're really supposed to be. And again, like what I'm saying, I think I'm still figuring out what I really believe about this. But what I would say today, my 41-year-old self, is I feel like it's a little oversold. And what I would say about my own journey with passion is that I think I'm good at finding the things I love about the place I am. If you would have asked me at 25 years old, like, do you love marketing? I would have been like, what? I mean, I don't know. Not really.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me at 29, do you love being an entrepreneur? I think I would have been like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I love it. Like, I don't know. Not really. Like, but I've practiced finding the things that I love about it to a place where I authentically love it now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like marketing, sure. I mean, I don't know. I think I also could have been really passionate about sales. I think I also could have been really passionate about a product that I sold that I loved. But what I've learned I love about marketing is that we get to go in and meet all these interesting people in all these companies and learn about all these interesting things that they do and these corporate stories and how they got to this thing. And it's like complex and kind of hard. And it's like really fun because my brain is always challenged. Like, I love the idea of building a team. I love finding people. And I have found what I love in where I am, instead of, I think, having to feel like I needed to change place to find what I loved.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like learned passion.
I think for me it has been. And it's like, well, does that mean it's contrived? Like, I don't think it is.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes passion, at least in the business world, I think sometimes it seems like it's like God gave you this passion. Like he dropped it on you when you were born, and that's your one and only. So I guess it's kind of comforting to like think that there's a lot of different passions that I could have. I just like haven't figured them out yet. I haven't been exposed to them even.
I think the first 10 years of your career are about discovering and understanding your unique ability. The only things I really know how to do is make things simple and talk. It's like really all I know how to do. And I have had to learn to like step in and practice my unique ability and to find opportunities to be able to do that lots of times. But for a long time, I had to write marketing plans. For a long time, I had to be an account executive, basically. For a long time, I had to do sales calls. For a long time, I had to manage our pipeline. For a long time, like there's a lot of things I had to do to get to this job that I have today. I've always run Element 3, but the functional aspect of my role was very different when we were in the early days than it is now. Like my title was the same. It looked like I was in charge, but mostly I was just running accounts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I had to go through, I think, all those practice cycles to learn what I'm really good at is making complex things simple and getting people to understand and care about them by talking about it. Like, that's kind of all I really know how to do. So now I'm at a place where I get to do that one thing a lot more often. And I've learned what to peel off my plate and add to my plate based on that discovery of my unique ability. But it's not like, I was pants on fire, just passionate about marketing and being an entrepreneur and a working mom at 25, such that I had this vision in my head. I didn't see any of it. But I think I was patient and paying attention to the ingredients that were sort of in the bucket I had and was able to pick out the things I like authentically loved and connected to.
Something I've been catching myself doing a lot, which my boyfriend gets mad and tells me not to do it, is I keep saying like, oh, I'll be so happy when this piece of my life happens. When I get married, I'll be so happy when I buy a house. Like, I'll be so happy when I sell my first 6-figure deal. Like, things like that. A trap I've been falling into. I don't know if you've ever been in that.
1,000%. That's totally, to me, totally been a rehearsed head game thing of, I used to say, people would say, how are you doing? And I would say, my response was, I'm so busy. And I was like, nobody cares, first of all. Like, literally nobody cares. A. B, everybody thinks they're busy, whether they are or they not. So who cares? Again, who cares? And C, isn't it what I choose? Like, isn't it of my own making? Isn't it actually what I prefer? Like, why am I pretending to be a martyr? And so I have started saying things like, I love the roles I play as a mom, a wife, and an entrepreneur. I love those roles. I choose them all, and I accept the chaos and complexity that comes with that, which is a totally different lens than like, I'm so busy. It's like, oh my word, you must be. You have 4 kids. And I say now, like, it's my choice. I love it. I'm not going to even let their responses put me in a victim mentality of like, you must be so busy. It's like, I mean, not really. I'm as busy as I want to be, and I love it. And it turns the narrative even for me and not allowing the sort of social expectation of me being exhausted and run ragged and just like, sort of dragging through my life reluctantly. And it's like, it reframes your energy towards it when you literally say to yourself, don't I love this? I love this. Why am I acting like I don't love it?
I was listening to a different episode where you're kind of talking about this idea of like it's unbalanced by society standards. How do you decide what things are the ones that you're going to prioritize? And how do you say no to the things I don't like without coming off that you don't care about those other things?
I discover what I like in the rearview mirror. When I was trying to figure out what I liked and what I didn't, I would like read my energy before I went to bed. And either like, if I was like, I'm still kind of jacked, like, what did I do today? Who did I meet? Like, what happened? Why am I like cranking inside? Like, my brain is working. I'm loving it. And I would sort of start to look at like, what was the makeup of my calendar? Like, what did I get to do today that I have so much energy? And then conversely, I would look at like the days where I was going to bed, like within an inch of myself and just like, lumbering. I would be like, what happened today that just sort of like took it out of me? Why is that? And just like reading what it is that gives you energy and what doesn't, I think is a way to uncover what we like. For me, my best days are when I'm just like balls out all day long. I love it. I love being 45 seconds late to everything. I love it fast and crazy. And at the end of those hardest days, I have the most energy. When I have like 45 to 90 minute gaps between everything, it's like slamming on the brakes for me. I just want to rock and roll and like, boom. And I'm like, woo, let's do it again. And I have more energy at the end of my craziest days than I do on the days that are like, and so I just have had to learn. I love that. As far as deciding what doesn't get my time, is trial and error.
Okay.
Sometimes you do something and you're in it and you're like, I'm not really digging these people. I'm not really digging this place. I'm not really digging this mission. My advice, if you're 22 and you're trying to figure out what you like, I would say yes to everything. Like, get your reps in. Like, get exposed to people and to things. And like, my advice is like, go hard. Don't relax right now. You've got time for days. You might not think it, but
then
you've
you
got,
start having babies. And then when do you relax?
so I don't need to.
Huh.
It's not a critical expectation that I have for my life. I care too much about the things that I want to do with my time and the experiences I want to have with my people that I don't need that. And that doesn't mean that there's not times when I like sit on the couch with my kids and like chill. But I have found that like unstructured days where I just get to like kind of do what I want, it's not something that I need. And that's not saying other people don't. I'm super extroverted. I get filled by experiences, not by time on my own. I don't want to like poo-poo rest. I have just learned I don't need nothing going on Saturday. I just don't need that. And that doesn't mean that sometimes it's not nice, but I just don't need that.
Well, I think learning that. Like,
And I used to feel like I should rest. It's like, no, I'm good. I sleep. I am a 7 to 8 hour a night girl. And I tell people I sleep a lot more than I think people think. And that, if I keep control of that, I can rock hard a really long time. But I have to sleep. I cannot, I'm not wired where I can sleep 4, 5, 6, maybe once a month. But I don't do well. And so I've learned to protect these minimums, my sleep and my workouts. And if I do that, I can go, baby.
So those are like your hard like things that are
Those are my
must-haves.
non-negotiables.
Okay. So I know your husband used to own a business. My boyfriend just started a business. So do you guys talk about business? I've heard like weird advice saying like don't talk about work after work with your significant other.
Oh, brother.
But like that's such a big
I mean, my
part of
husband is
life.
one of my most trusted advisors, and I think he would say the same of me. We have such complementary talents when it comes to business. He is so strategic. Yeah, that's bananas advice from my perspective. Our family culture, JR and I's couple culture, is that he knows a lot of details about what's going on in my business life, and he brings me into like the things that he really feels like I can help him with. So I love that JR and I have a shared intellectual knowledge and passion for business. It's brought, I think, just a lot of richness to our marriage. I know there's people who have spouses that are in totally different, one's a doctor and one, this, and like really separate, and they really just play together.
Yeah.
That's on us. Now, JR and I don't think could ever be in the same thing together.
Okay.
Like we would never probably successfully like start a business together. I think there's couples that also do that well, and that's a totally different model. But I don't know. I think like I like to be in charge. He likes to be in charge. I think we could struggle. I think we would probably both admit that wouldn't be great for our relationship. But man, I respect his brain a ton. He's so good at some things. And then I feel like he really leans on me on like communication and how to articulate things well, and just like having more empathy in the way that he thinks. I really help him strategically with that. So I don't know. I think that's, if you guys have a shared interest and passion, I think that's bonkers. But I'm a data point. So you get to take in all the data points and then you can decide what you want for your own life. But I would say that's bonkers.
It's hard to avoid.
Totally.
When you were starting a business, how did you guys prioritize and like make time for your relationship as you were both in this really busy season of your life?
I think being really clear with yourself about what do I need from this other person to feel full. And then in the same way that you were really clear with Stephanie that like, I need you to compliment me for me to know I'm doing a good job. And she's like, oh, I've got one thing to do to fill your cup pretty much to the max. It's like the same thing. It's different because you guys are boyfriend, girlfriend. We were
Yeah.
married when we were both entrepreneurs, but we both understood the big picture of what we were trying to do and that the odds were like massively against us. We are both starting businesses. We both don't really know what we're doing. There's a ton of financial risk all the way around it. And big picture, if we pull this off, this is going to be really cool. And if we don't, then we'll go to plan B. But we both recognized it was going to take a lot of time and an atypical amount of investment to do that and like risk taking. And I mean, I don't know. We like experiences. We don't like need a lot of hours together to feel full. I would say quality time is important. My husband loves it when we like go away for the weekend to a different city. I'm super like mentally available when we like get away from the house and stuff. So we learned we have to take really probably 2 trips together a year. One's a weekend and one's a week. And that really fills us up and we have a chance to like kind of just play and experience each other and just like have fun, you know, doing something new. Love to explore cities. And then we also did like Friday nights. This is so cheesy. I just remembered this. We would go to Chili's and get the like unlimited chips and salsa and eat tons of chips and salsa and like maybe a margarita and a beer. And we would just like kind of rehash the week and get like reconnect that way. I mean, it was probably $7 that we spent. But Friday, that's what we did. Friday nights, we would meet at Chili's.
That's the funniest location you could have said.
So
I was not expecting that to come out of your
weird.
mouth.
Chili's. It's totally Chili's. There's nothing cool about that. But that's what we did. It was cheap. We didn't have any money. We didn't have any money. I think that's the other thing. Like you 22, 25, 28-year-olds, everything's been so fancy your whole lives. And we didn't have money. Things were crappy. We had crappy cars. We had like crappy stuff. And we had to live real cheap. And it was great for us. Things were not fancy. We would buy, do you know the TV show 24?
Mm-mm.
Jack Bauer. We would buy the season sets. They were like $100 or $59 or something like that because there was no streaming. And so we would get a new one of those. And that was like the equivalent of going on a vacation. It was like 50. I don't know if they're like 59. It was like a whole season. We could watch as many in a row as we wanted to. And it just felt so indulgent. And those were like our super fun things. So what else is on your mind? Text me, 317-350-8921, 317-350-8921. And be sure to follow along on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening today.